entered, you may have seen the banner that says Amherst Women's Club 130 years, which is pretty remarkable. At the time of its inception, women were identified through their husband's work and status. So a group of forward-thinking women decided they needed a place where women could exchange ideas, have some independence, take on leadership roles, and of particular interest was giving and back to the community and helping the community. So the Thursday evening speaker series continues in that spirit, and we feature remarkable and accomplished local women and ask them to tell their personal journey of challenges and achievements. And I see, Myla, you were part of it, weren't you? Yes. So we've had a range. We've had artists and authors, and we've had health care specialists. We've had entrepreneurs. We've had educators. We had a film maker who did a documentary. We had diversity experts, and I'm sure I forgot many of them. But we've been fortunate to have some very interesting people. And tonight, we are especially fortunate to have Shalini Bahl, Dr. Shalini Bahl, speak about her journey to becoming a renowned mindfulness expert. Now, I thought I would start with a few key points that you may or may not talk about, but I think I should brag on your behalf.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have permission to do that. Take it away.
Okay. Well, Dr. Bahl is an award-winning author, researcher, and mindfulness pioneer who brings a unique blend of academic rigor and practical wisdom to personal and organizational transformation. Named one of the 10 powerful women of the mindfulness movement, she has spent over 15 years developing evidence-based mindfulness that bridges ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience, which is very interesting. As the founder of Know Your Mind and creator of the Return to Mindfulness program, Dr. Bahl has worked with Fortune 500 executives, educators, and civic leaders to disrupt default thinking patterns that limit both individual and collective potential. Her groundbreaking research on multiple selves and mindfulness has won recognition from the American Marketing Association, and she has guided meditation for over 80,000 people all over the world. So Dr. Bahl's journey from chartered accountant in India to elected official in Amherst uniquely positions her to understand transformation across cultures and contexts. Her best-selling book, and let me get a visual aid,
Yes.
her best-selling book, Return to Mindfulness, winner of the International Impact Book Award, offers innovative approaches to developing 8 key mindfulness skills for personal fulfillment and positive global impact. Dr. Bahl holds a Ph.D. in marketing from the University of Massachusetts and is certified in mindfulness-based stress reduction, something we could all use, from the University of Massachusetts Medical School. She formerly served on the Amherst Town Council and teaches mindful marketing at the Eisenberg School of Management, helping future business leaders understand their role in creating sustainable, community-centered enterprises. So, with great pleasure, I present Dr. Shalini Bahl. And I'll just ask a few questions at the end. So, Dr. Bahl.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so honored to be in this historic place. Can you imagine that right here in this space, there were 11 radical women rebels who came together. And I feel so honored to be in the same space to share my story and my journey along with those women and all the other women who have spoken here, thanks to Amherst Women's Club board and staff who continue to support events and women's stories here. So I don't know about y'all, but I've been needing extra deep breaths these days. So if you would like to join me, I'd like to invite us to take maybe just 3 deep breaths. And if that's not your scene, you want to just shake it out, you want to stretch, let's just take 3 brief moments to fully arrive here. So as I ring these bells, find your way to fully arrive to this place, to ourselves, to each other. Thank you. So, how did that feel for you, just taking those 3 breaths? For some people, maybe it felt like, oh, it was good to just get a moment to breathe deeply and not just shallow. And for some people, that might have been awkward, like we're sitting here in company, why are you making us do that? So whatever your experience was, I welcome all of that. We are going to be in a judgment-free zone today. So I welcome you all to share and be part of the conversation, honestly. So when I was in town council, I would start the district meetings with these bells. And I discovered something really interesting. So for some people, that was a welcome pause, a collective pause. They loved it. And for other people, that was completely inappropriate. In fact, some of them even said they felt like cows being herded by the bells. And my fellow counselor asked me very politely to discontinue that practice. And so isn't that interesting? The same experience, the bell, it can be seen, experienced as an invitation to presence, and it can also be viewed as an instrument for manipulation, depending upon the stories, the beliefs that we are bringing to experience that same situation, right? And that is just how it is. It's our stories, our belief systems, our default habits that shape our experience in each moment, and then they impact how we react and respond, and therefore the choices we make, and therefore our lives. And I know that because I'm trained as a researcher and a mindfulness practitioner. But more importantly, I know that from my personal experience, because for the first half of my life, I was living on autopilot. And by that, I mean, I was making decisions based on stories that were told to me of what it means to be a good Indian woman, a good Indian daughter, a wife. And it was kind of like this rudderless boat, kind of mostly on placid waters, but every now and then there was a storm and I would just kind of go where the storm is taking me. And basically I'm masterful at pivoting, right? If something happens, I'm like, okay, now I'll do this. And then something else happens and I will do that, based on what was expected of me as an Indian daughter. And which means that in this one life, I have been a chartered accountant, an exporter, a fashion designer, a researcher, a mindfulness teacher, an Eisenberg professor, a town councilor, and more recently an author, along with being a daughter, a wife to 3 different men, different times, of course, and and a mother to my son. And trust me, I was not vying for the most interesting resume. I was just trying to be a good daughter. And ask my son, because he was part of this journey with me, and all along, seeing how desperately his mom was trying to be a perfect mom, a perfect daughter, probably wondering why she had to collect so many degrees along the way and so many husbands, and what it would take to just settle down in one place, because I moved him from India to Kuwait to Amherst to Utah and back to Amherst, all within the first 12 years of his life. So if you're wondering, he turned out okay. And he actually just became a doctor, a psychiatrist actually. One wonders why. But I digress. The point I was making is that I have been living my life on autopilot, and what if I told you we are all trapped by our default stories? The stories we tell ourselves about our politics, about our culture, about ourselves, about each other. And these stories can limit who we are in that moment. They make us smaller, box us in certain ways. And not only do they keep us away from our own potential, but also from authentically connecting with each other as human beings, just the way we are. And the good news, though, is that we can disrupt these stories. And I'm here to share my journey today of the many ways in which these stories kept me limited, and also the ways in which I disrupted some of these stories. So part 1, the good daughter following the rules. And talking of disruption, I have to begin the story with my grandmother, who was the OG disruptor, the original disruptor, because she was born in Pakistan during the British era, and she married a rich landlord who actually came to the United States back then, went to Cornell University to study agriculture. So she was given this life where she was going to live this amazing life with her 2 daughters, including my mom being one of them. However, life turned out differently. In 1947, India split into Pakistan and India, and my grandmother with her family had to leave everything behind. And in its place in India, the Indian government gave them a piece of land in Rajasthan, which is completely dry, nothing grows there. And so my grandfather, the gentleman from America, studied from Cornell, did not know how to deal with that. And he turned to alcohol and never worked again. My grandmother, on the other hand, did something radical. She went to school. Back then, she went back and got her master's degree as a teacher and then became a principal. And all I remember of her is just this incredible time that we had together. So growing up, I was in Kuwait, but every year, every summer, monsoon season, hot, humid, mosquitoes, I went back to be with her, to listen to her stories every night. And we were there, huddled in this one, what is it called? Not even queen size, what is smaller than a queen size? Charpais, kind of. And we'd be huddled, my cousin brother, my nanny, and me, and she would tell us stories all through the night, and you can see us goofing around. There she is, 4 feet nothing, but so assertive. And the other remarkable thing I remember about her is that she was so generous. She welcomed everyone into the house, and whoever came, she offered them something to eat. She had kept some hidden gift for that particular person. And that wasn't just kindness or generosity. That was revolutionary, actually, because when life had taken everything away from her, she refused to accept the story of being a victim or a martyr. Instead, she rewrote her story, and she disrupted the narrative that life had dealt her. And that, to me, has been my role model. And there we have a disruption right there. There you go. That's life, right? It happens. And how do we respond to it? Oh my God, I'm thrown off. Or, that's life. That's just how it is. As for me, we moved to Kuwait. I was born in India, but then we moved to Kuwait when I was 7 years old. And my father got a job there. And I tried really, really hard to be a good daughter. That's just who I am. I studied hard. I followed all the rules, very obedient, did everything that I could to follow my grandmother's principles of being generous, of being kind. And my father, he was a disruptor in his own way because he left India and moved to Kuwait as a part of a government job. And at some point, he took a big risk. He left his safe job and started his own business in Kuwait. And he worked super hard, a very generous man again, lives ethically, he's still alive, and was working right till he was 80 years old, till I said, like, stop, you gotta stop, quit and move. And so I helped him move back from Kuwait to India during the pandemic. And he had saved enough money for me to follow my dreams of coming to the States to do my MBA. And that's what I was set to do. I had gotten my admission in Clemson, South Carolina. That's where I got in. I'm like, fine, I'm coming to the States. I'm going to do my MBA. Except Saddam Hussein decided to invade Kuwait, and I happened to be right there in transition, waiting to take my flight to the States, but instead I got stuck over there. Instead of orientation time, I was hiding away from Iraqi soldiers because we didn't know how things are gonna go, so it wasn't safe for women. So we hid in our homes for 2 months, and then in a cargo plane where my mom and we sat on, you can't really see, these are fake pictures. We didn't have cell phones there, which could have recorded the whole journey, but it was super scary. We had just one suitcase and we had to pack our valuables and just leave. So we left everything behind. My dad left his business, everything, which got stolen, looted. We were left with nothing, and we moved back to India with just one suitcase full of our valuables and started all over again. Meanwhile, I knew that I was not going to be able to, step back. I was not going to be able to go to do my MBA. So instead, I joined Pricewaterhouse locally and started my work auditing, because nothing says I'm dealing with trauma quite like doing tax laws and studying for auditing with just 3% chance of passing. So that was my way of coping with what's happening, just again, pivoting, going with the flow. And very soon, I ended up with an arranged marriage after meeting the person just twice. So just twice. I had an opportunity to say no, but I liked him, he liked me, let's get married. So there I was. And soon after we got married, during my honeymoon, I found out that my husband's business was closing. So I did what any good Indian wife would do. I quit my career as an auditor with Pricewaterhouse, which I was doing very well, passing all my exams, doing great. And I joined my husband and overnight went from auditor to being a fashion exporter and designer. And there I was with a suitcase full of clothes. Some of my students know that story. And I was in Kuwait in a fashion exhibition, wearing something maybe like this. And I had this suitcase of fashion clothes going from stall to stall. And we were very lucky to find a vendor who liked what I was wearing. And she's like, can you make the Arabian garments look like this? So there we were, we revolutionized the Arabian garments. So we took Indian embroideries and made them into excellent full-length daras. For the Kuwaiti women, we ran the first fashion shows with Miss Universe runners-up, that one, Namrata Shirodkar. And it was like amazing, and business was thriving. In my 20s, I had started $1 million business in sales. So it was like super cool, loved it. But my personal life, I was not thriving. I was not doing well at all. And within 6 years of my marriage, my son was 2 years old. I made the hardest decision to walk away from my marriage. And I did it in a really awful way. I packed my 2 bags, one for my son, one for me, and I hugged everyone at home. Bye, see y'all. And I left, knowing I'm not gonna come back. It was a terrible way to leave and ask for divorce, but I didn't know better. I absolutely did not know how I can even possibly have that conversation, so I just left. Although, I have to say, packing our lives in these 2 bags, that might have been the real accomplishment. Have you seen how Indians travel? So yeah. Anyways, fast forward to part 2, the journey of waking up from autopilot to awareness. So my journey landed me here. 2 years I was in Kuwait, did some work, finished my exams, got my CPA degree, helped my dad organize his business, and meanwhile I found my way to the States, to Amherst actually. This was my first home. And away from my culture, away from family, I finally had the time to question the choices I had made in my life. And in India, we don't believe in therapists. We have astrologers. So I'd left my astrologers in India, and here I was without friends, really, without family, and it was trees that became my first friends and my first meditation teachers. Because in the stillness of the trees, I would walk, I would sit, and I would ask these questions, and I would hear this quiet whisper, listen, listen within. And I would find the answers. I would ask the question, and when I would take a deep breath, it was like, take a deep breath and listen. And when I did that, I was starting to find the answers, that who I thought I was, maybe that's not it. I was starting to wake up. But the real awakening happened at a shamanic ritual in Costa Rica. So, note to self, check the fine print. No one mentioned the hallucinogenics that were part of that. Did not know. Flew down there in the middle of this forest with 100 strangers, as you can see, all dressed in white. And we were told we're going to have to take this ayahuasca, and it's going to take us on a journey. Sometimes we may throw up. We may find ourselves, and we'll get exactly what we need, and we will see what we need to see. So, of course, I was like, no, thank you. I don't need to take drugs for my spiritual evolution. But there was that voice inside that said, says who? And it was that voice that questioned that other voice saying, oh no, we're not. And this was like, says who? And I knew there was a reason why I was called to this place. And I embarked on that journey, and it was exactly what I imagined. It was scary as hell. It was the scariest thing I've ever done, Because there I was in the middle with shamans, and that was beautiful. We had beautiful shamans singing and chanting world music. It made me feel grounded, but the ayahuasca had a journey planned for me, and which involved going through this dark tunnel alone and asking me to then jump into the abyss. And I'm like, nope, no way am I jumping there. And meanwhile, I'm hearing all these different voices, right? My spiritual voice, it's all in the mind. There's no pain, it's all in the mind. And then my academic voice trying to make sense of this. You know this is not really happening, right? And there are all these different voices. And yet I'm struggling, I'm fighting this fear of jumping. And finally, at 5 a.m, I surrendered. And I was like, take me wherever. I surrender. And the moment I did that, all the voices dissolved and experienced this profound stillness. And that experience completely changed my life, because I discovered this perfect self that I was striving to be does not exist. It's evolving, it's changing, and guess what? There are multiple selves, firstly, and then underlying all of these different voices and stories and selves, there is our own inner knowing. That's there always. And it just is. And it's far more profound, far more present, connected, at ease. And that experience informed my dissertation. It completely changed my life. I was going to do a different privacy technology dissertation, and it completely changed the tracks to make my dissertation about multiple selves and this meta-awareness, to which, of course, my marketing committee was like, what does that have to do with marketing? That's probably the worst dissertation proposal we've ever heard. And of course, I listened to that quiet voice, which was like, no, this is it. You're going to, because I felt so, I had experienced it. It was so real for me. I was so passionate about it. So I went to Denmark. I studied with the best qualitative researchers. I found new methodologies, mixed methods to go and understand how do multiple selves exist? What is this dialogical nature within ourselves? How do we make decisions? And of course, when we do something that is done wholeheartedly, and we keep pursuing it. You don't give up. It wasn't an easy journey. It required many edits, many this and that, but finally it got published in the best premier journal, Journal of Consumer Research, and was even cited in the Time magazine, albeit it was the online edition, but still. It's still kind of cool, I get to say that. And it also, that same dissertation landed me an amazing job at the University of Utah, and for the first time, I was fully independent with my son, financially, socially, spiritually. I felt like I was in charge of my life. It was awesome. And then I got married to an amazing person. Third time's a charm. We're still married, fingers crossed. And there was just a slight issue there because my husband was back here in Amherst. I was there. So of course I did what any good Indian wife would do. I just quit my job and moved to Amherst. Was there a dialogue what was going to happen when I moved here? Of course not. We'll figure that out. You know, I'll get a job. I have such a good resume. Something will work out. Except it didn't. I did not get a job. I kept applying to different places, and there were rejections and accidents and all kinds of signs from the universe. This is not it. You're not meant to be a marketing professor. Stop, just stop. I'm like striving and striving, like, no, I worked so hard to be a Ph.D. and I have to get this friggin' job. And so I kept trying till at some point I had to stop. So that's part 3. Finding purpose through letting go. So maybe I was 40 or 44, I don't remember. It was my birthday and I'm driving and I'm like, what do I really want? I have all these freaking degrees with myself and I'm not doing anything really. What do I really want? And when I asked myself that question, the answer was so obvious. mindfulness. It was so clear. I just had not stopped to ask because I was just striving and striving, right? I was so trying to, again, meet the expectation of this is what I'm supposed to do, having gotten all these degrees, that I didn't stop to question what is it that my heart wants. Because I had been teaching students at University of Utah mindfulness, and it fulfilled me like nothing else. I had been practicing. My own life had changed because of mindfulness. And so here was an opportunity to do something that I really care about. And I was so lucky. My husband supported me in this long journey of several years of getting certified at the UMass Medical School. Got to work with amazing teachers like Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, Mirabai Bush, Joseph Goldstein, and many of these teachers are right here in the Valley. So I was just so lucky that I didn't have to fly, or I could just drive down and be nurtured by all of these wonderful teachers, and discovering what was really my calling. And I felt so passionate because I knew what it's like to live without knowing what is our soul's journey, without really asking, what is it that really energizes me? I had lived so much of my life just sleepwalking, and now I knew what it was like. So I wanted to share it with students. I wanted to bring it into universities, into organizations, to do business differently. Maybe we can do marketing. What would mindful marketing look like if we didn't addict our consumers, but instead enhance the quality of life of consumers? What would that look like? So I continued to do my research in marketing, even though I was not involved in academics really, but because I felt like we need to bring mindfulness into marketing. And it was just so rewarding because, again, the American Marketing Association acknowledged that work, and we won the Best Paper Award for after it's over a period of 3 years. And so that was like super cool. And I discovered a framework that I used in my own life, that I started teaching. I started working on a book where mindfulness really includes 3 parts. The first being meditation, and which most people are, if I ask anyone what is mindfulness, most people will be like, it's meditation or it's non-judging awareness. And that's just the first piece, right? What is not emphasized in the West, in the secular teachings, is contemplation. Because once you train your mind with meditation to be present, to be in control, to be aware, then you have the opportunity to dig in deeper. What are the causes and conditions for a situation to arise? What are my intentions? What would I like to see happen? What's going on for other people? So you have that space, you're creating that space to go deeper within and get connected with your own inner knowing, right? And then the third piece is of actually acting on that. Because as we all know, it's good to meditate, but how many of us actually do that? Or we know it's good to do yoga or go to the gym. We know these things, but because of our default habits, we resist making that change. So the third part of the training is realigning our thoughts, our speech, our actions throughout the day with our intentions of how we want to show up, how we want to live this one wild and precious life. And then, just when I was starting to feel good, I'm writing this book, another twist. So someone suggested that I should run for town council. And it was the first town council that was being formed. And my first reaction, thank you, but no thank you, because I have zero interest in politics. For the first 14 years of being in America, I didn't even vote. I was not a citizen. So, but then, as we all know, there's that little voice that says, don't say no. Let's meditate on this. So I sit down, I meditate, and then there was this sort of knowing that maybe, just maybe, the perspective I bring as an Indian woman, immigrant, and it's helpful to be in mindfulness. And the town was very divided at the time, so maybe I could make a difference. And did I? Do not ask that question. But we're not going to answer that. But and also it felt like this is a way to give back. This community had been my home, and this was my chance to do something positive for the community. So I did join. And overall, it was a very mindful campaign, I would say. And in fact, I have my co-chair right there, Farah, who is my co-chair, and Irv is, hopefully he will see this. He's in Florida right now. So, and we have Lynn, the president. Okay, sorry, I digress. Okay, so, and we have a District 5 counselor who replaced me when I left. We have Bob, who's there. So just, if anyone from District 5, please connect with him afterwards. So, no, yes, please. So yes, it was a very mindful campaign. As you can see, we had recycled wood signs. So instead of using plastic, we used recycled signs, which I went to my friend, Cinda Jones, who owns the Coles and lumber. So like, can I use some recycled wood? And not only did she take the concept, she like started creating the templates. That's just how Cinda is. Like, she was creating templates and designs. And I'm like, okay, let's make the Holyoke range and blah, blah, blah. And so there I was perfecting my one sign, painting it. And meanwhile, Cinda had 30 signs already done. So we made 100 of those signs. My husband went digging. I mean, painting was the easy part. Then you have to install them because they were like wood, so you had to hammer them in. Anyway, it was all worth it because I think we ran a really collaborative, a beautiful campaign. And along the way, there were many #mindfulness fails, as I like to say. Because what I discovered was that while in meditation, while things are going well, it was easy for me to show up mindfully. But when I was challenged, and in fact, okay, let me tell you a story that happened right here actually at the Amherst Women's Club. I can't remember what the event was, but I'm just sitting there, come because it's a community event, and it was during the campaign time. We were canvassing, and the woman next to me said, "I'm not voting for you because you're being supported by the PAC, a political action committee locally." And what did I do as a mindfulness practitioner? Very calm, very kind. And then I started explaining to her how she was wrong and why I was worthy of being a candidate. And of course, it doesn't harm to share my different degrees. I would bring my Ph.D. and my CA degree. And you have those degrees, why not name them? And of course, we parted ways. Neither of us changed our minds. We kind of, just, okay, bye-bye. And then the next day in meditation, of course, I was like, there was something missing there. What happened? And I'm like, okay, where was my curiosity for that person's perspective? I immediately went into defending and explaining. And that's what we all do, right? If someone confronts our sense of identity, our competence, our immediate reaction, because we're hardwired that way, is to defend ourselves. And we lose our curiosity and compassion. And so that started happening over and over again. And I realized that, okay, it's not just meditation, it's not just awareness, but once we're aware we're triggered, then what do we do? Once we find that we're with somebody who has a completely different point of view, what do we do then? And that took me on another journey of digging in deep into mindfulness and what's missing, what's not. And finally, I came across these 8 mindfulness qualities or 8 mindfulness skills that the Buddha talked about. And this is completely secular, it doesn't have anything to do with religion, because I looked at it from psychology point of view, and I discovered that these 8 qualities really disrupt biases that we have, default habits that we have. So for example, the first foundational skill is awareness, right? So first you just want to be aware that in that interaction, I am being triggered. Because often we don't even know we're triggered and we go on a default. So the first step is to just notice that in my body, in my mind, I am feeling triggered. My heart is beating faster, my breath is shallow, and now you're aware. And then the judgments come in, right? Like, she's wrong. How could she say that? She's always doing that. Like, all of those judgments will come in, which is natural. And that's when we bring in compassion, because compassion will disrupt our habit of judging, automatically judging ourselves and others, and changing that to seeking to understand what is her perspective. And so there are cards for you, by the way, that have these 8 so you can keep it with you. So you will know when you feel judgy, what you need is compassion. And then when you're feeling really attached, you're like, no, I am so right about this, they are so wrong. When you feel so attached to your point of view, that might be confirmation bias, because confirmation bias means we are searching for evidence to confirm what we already believe. And curiosity is what allows us to question, to open our minds, ask, like, going back to that situation, what was her lived experience to come to this conclusion that it's not good to support someone, being supported by a pack? What are her lived experiences? What are her concerns? If I am supported by a pack, what is her worst worry? Right? Asking those what-based questions. What would you like to see happen in the new government? So all of those ways we can bring curiosity in moments when we are feeling conflicted. And similarly, the book is there and it's available at Amherst Books, in case anyone's interested, because it goes into the specifics of what it means to be curious, what it means to be compassionate, beyond just being kind and so forth, right? And I won't lie, it's a messy part. Even with all the practice I was doing, there were so many moments in politics. Really, politics was my next teacher, I would like to say, because it really forced me to go deep into my resources and figure out what does it mean to stay balanced, to be able to listen and not shut down when we are hearing the same thing over and over again. What does it mean to keep our hearts and minds open, to see the person and how they care, our similarities, our shared humanity, what are the commonalities, our shared values, even though we're approaching in different ways, we are still human. We're still part of the same ecosystem, and we care about the same things, many of them. And of course, there are differences. And so how do we get to that place? So I created this roadmap where we learn to just return. The first step is to just return to the present moment, to our experience, what's happening now. And then once we're present, using your breath, your body, whatever it is, exercise, running, once you return, then you listen to that quiet voice. The other voice is much louder, right? The reactive voice, oh, they're so wrong, let's da. But the voice of inner knowing is more subtle, and it requires us to learn how to love the emotions and transform them into a space where we can listen to what is really going on, what is needed here, what are my intentions. And then, depending on the situation, we can invite the different qualities of the mind to listen and then to act. And this has really allowed me to move from that place where I was so submissive, I was so shy and afraid and a pleaser, always wanting to please, even when I joined town council, I thought I had nothing to say because everyone was so confident, and I felt like I had no voice. And it took me that journey of really finding that, no, I do have a voice, I do have something to say, and it may be right or wrong, but being more and more awake has allowed me to find joy, whether it's cooking, whether it's being in nature or teaching or being in a town committee. It's not from a place I should do this, but it's more from a place of love and care and joy, because I care. And I care because I'm a human being part of this web of people where we're all together on this journey at this particular moment of time. And it's not just for the good fun and the passion, but this process, this practice allows us to also meet discomfort, whether it's of difficult conversations. For me, this example of running, because I hated running. You can ask me to sit and meditate and I can do that for hours at end, but ask me to move and I hate it. I hated that because my wiring was in Kuwait where it was too hot to do anything, so we were always sitting. And so by inviting compassion towards myself, which is understanding that of course I don't like to move because I grew up in Kuwait. And so now I know my wiring is to not move. Now I want to be more active, and especially as I'm getting older, to stay healthier. What do? So with compassion and inviting appreciative joy for my body, because of my love for my body, for the work I do, I want to be able to stay and have vitality. So for all of those reasons, I started running and made that my mindfulness practice. And it was more about, okay, I hate it, but what do I hate? What is hate? Oh, this is so hard. What is hard? What does hard look like? Hard is a concept, right? What does hard mean in the body when I'm running? Oh, I'm out of breath. Okay, your heart is pumping, it's getting stronger. What's wrong with that? So when you bring that curiosity and engage with yourself authentically in that moment, I realized that I can take one more step and one more step. And over time, it was still hard for a very long time. And even now, getting out in the cold, which again, I don't like, but getting out there and meeting myself, loving myself, my body, I'm able to go out and do that, and I'm actually starting to enjoy it. So those neural patterns are starting to change into enjoying being active. So we can make those changes. And my current edge is the too busy story, because partly being an introvert and partly because of always having to start over, I felt I had no time for friendships. And old and new friends, this is my commitment, my intention now to disrupt that story of I don't have enough time, and make time, because it is important, especially in the times we live in, and always really, we're social animals. So it's important to nurture. When you find somebody that you connect with, reach out. Don't wait. Even if they never call you back, reach out again and again, because you feel that connection. And so make time for that. That's my intention. So part 5, putting it all together, from personal growth to community change. If I hadn't taken that one step, that imperfect step, the way I walked away from that marriage, I would have still been there. I would have not opened up to all of these different ways that I bring the gifts and enjoy the gifts in my own life and share them with my community. And my son's life would have been completely different. So sometimes, even if that step is imperfect, we need to take it and find and discover ourselves and make time to connect with that dream within us. What is it that my soul, my deepest self, wants to do in this one life? Make time for that. Keep nurturing that. And when we do that, not only do we show up fully, authentically for ourselves, but that then ripples out into the communities that we live in. And that much stronger are our communities. So key takeaways, I'd love to hear from you. What were some key takeaways for you from listening to my journey? And for me, it was definitely realizing that earlier I thought it was just me. Oh, I don't know, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not beautiful enough, or I'm not. And then I'm like, guess what? everyone has some story in their minds that is limiting them. And so we all have these default stories, and often we don't even know they are dictating how we are living our lives. And we can't change what we can't see. So it's really important to make time to listen, to slow down, listen, and then we get to choose our story that we want to live and share with the world. And we have 8 mindfulness skills whenever we feel stuck. You can go out and be with the trees, find community that supports you in finding yourself, authentically connecting with yourself, supporting you to live your dreams. And yeah, your turn. What default story is ready to be disrupted in your life? So I have an online community called Sama Life. Sama means skillful, so skillful living. And so if you'd like to join that, it's on Substack. And of course, the book is available if you're interested in learning more about this process, the 8 skills, how we can develop those 8 mindfulness skills. And then there is an app as well, which has micro practices to go with the book. And really, if you're interested in joining the online community, that's what I'm hoping to do now, is offer once a week where we can come together, practice together, and then have deep conversations, or real authentic conversations, a space to be messy, to be as we are, and figure out what it means to live skillfully for ourselves, for our communities, for each other. So, thank you.
Really, and so helpful that we go deep.
Thank you.
So
Questions? Questions? Comments?
Shalini, as someone who's also a town councilor and has a Ph.D., your experience with your committee saying your Ph.D. topic was what? Unworthy.
Self-awareness. Yeah.
You must have had great courage to stand up to them. And
Right.
One of the things I've found in your life is you have a lot of courage. A lot of courage to overcome obstacles, to change when you need to change.
Right.
Explain to people how you can do that without courage.
Right. That's a really good point. And I see it more than courage as listening to that inner voice. Because when something is aligned with my values, and I think, as I say that, just think about your own life and situations where we've all taken steps that are bold or difficult, right? Or we've been through very difficult situations ourselves. And when we see what is right for us, when we may not know the full picture, we may not have the full clarity, like the shamanic thing. I had no clue. I just knew this sounds horrible and scary or whatever, but there was a voice inside. And so I think the biggest thing is for us to make space. When we feel conflicted, should I do it, should I not do it? I think that's the time to go out for a walk, meet a friend, talking aloud. I do that with my husband a lot. I'm like, I need your advice. And all we do is we walk really fast, and I tell him, and I go over the story again and again, and then I figure it out just by talking to him. And he's like, you're welcome. So very often it's just finding that trusted friend or yourself, being in nature, whether you go and do weights or whether you go running or whatever is your me time. I think connecting with that and learning to listen. And that's why I think the mindfulness skills, habits, that training, it's like you go to the gym and you build your muscle. The same way we can build our capacity of the mind to also not always be jumping, right? From thought to thought or being lost in it, but that ability to step back and be aware and have that big picture. This is what's going on. And that gives us more agency. What do I need to move forward and find clarity? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's a good question. Yes.
I really, really enjoyed your description of your journey.
Thank
Really
you.
resonates.
Thank you.
And I'm really interested in finding out more. But one thing that I'm curious about, and we live in such divided times
Right.
now, and your story about the woman who you,
Right.
sort of didn't have more curiosity about, but
Right.
how do you have any tips beyond that for how to deal with
Yeah.
our current
Yes.
situation of being so divided and often being triggered and often
Right.
also not feeling like getting the same thing back?
Right.
What happens in those situations?
Right, right. I mean, we all kind of, in our own ways, are dealing with the polarization we're seeing in our communities, locally, but also nationally. And so how do we navigate that, right? What does it mean and look like? I think the first thing is what I'm seeing in myself is I'm so distracted because I'm constantly like, now what? Now what? And I feel like there's this kind of, feeling of like, now what's going to happen? And so the first invitation for myself and all of us is to take care of ourselves. So make time, limit the time you're reading news, watching news, and be really disciplined about that as much as you can. And make time to nurture yourself. If it's going out in nature, being with friends, get together, don't discuss politics, have fun, have a cup of coffee, get to know new people. And so that's the first thing, making time to nurture, because if our inner calm is not there, we cannot make a difference outside. If we are also caught in this whirlwind of differences and reactivity and all of that, then we're just adding to it, right? So learning to step back and finding that inner calm, really connecting with your core, your inner compass is really important. And then finding opportunities where you can have a dialogue. Like recently I wrote on Substack, that Sama Life, about with my cousin who voted differently than I did. And that's one of the hardest things because he's like my kid brother. We grew up in Kuwait together. And for him to have voted completely different, and so I'll send him news items that I think are different, information that's a little different. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So so it's like, and doing that, and I have to be very intentional. It's not easy when I do that, because when I'm exchanging I'm going with an agenda like maybe he'll change. And he does not. He's not changing. So don't be disappointed. Go with the expectation that he's not going to change. But just because you're doing it from a place of love and joy, and you're going to share, I'll continue to share, and do that in a kind and curious way. So here's another trick I've been using. Because humans are emotional, and despite my mindfulness, I can get out of balance. I use AI for responding to difficult conversations. So I use Claude, where I'll feed the exchange we've had, and I'll tell Claude, can you find a kind, compassionate, logical way of looking at this situation from systems thinking point of view? I give a lot of criteria, like boundaries, to Claude, and what are the gaps in the logic of this person? Like, how can I respond back? So I do cheat a little bit there. I don't know if it's cheating. It's part of my team. He's part of she, he, they are part of my team. And so I do use a bit of Claude, because it's not possible for me to use so much, and I do have to do my research, because sometimes Claude will say, because in 1967, America did that. I'm like, can you provide a citation for that? I'm like, and oops, sorry. And Claude is like very quick to say, I apologize. That was just me hallucinating. And so you do want to verify the sources. Don't just go by that. But for me personally, that's a valuable resource, because it's always able to stay kind and objective and logical, way more logical than my mind works. So I use that. And then basically just seek opportunities to meet people who are different, and the compassion practice of seeing our similarities. I did that in counsel a lot because my mind would be like, oh, there she goes again. And, with hearing a fellow counselor, but then I would invite compassion. I'm like, okay, I see you, which was a reminder I had for myself. I see you was a reminder that I need to see this person beyond the point of difference. And she really cares for this community. Look at that. And I really care. So finding a commonality is really calm down. So finding appreciative joy, what is good in this person, because negativity bias is we only see what is wrong, but appreciative joy disrupts our negativity bias. So we can start to actually appreciate the good qualities in the person, which doesn't mean we're agreeing, but it brings us to a place of balance. Now we can engage without those layers of emotions. And I actually do have a couple of articles that I've written on Sama Life, but also Mindful Magazine. I write a lot of articles there. It's mindful.org. And if you look from articles, there are specific ones I wrote after the elections for how we can engage in our communities. And yeah, Bora.
Thank you for sharing your very moving story.
Thank you.
You're clearly a very strong and kind soul that has broken past many limiting beliefs in your life. So I'm just curious on if you're comfortable sharing, what was the biggest limiting belief that you had to break to be able to achieve a life of peace of mind? And also for everyone here, how would you recommend people approach breaking their limiting beliefs to pursue a better life?
Wow. That's a big one. Thank you for asking, Bora, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I think the biggest one that it's invisible to me because it's so much a part of me and I don't always see, is still the upbringing of the Indian particular narrative of how I'm supposed to think and show up. And I'm a very empathetic person, so I take on the voices of my husband, my mom, my son, and everyone, and make it mine. So it's really hard sometimes for me, and therefore I put a lot of pressure, like I should do this, I should have finished this presentation by now, I should have, there's a lot of shoulds because of those voices. And when I step back to identify, like, what am I feeling, this heaviness, this, oh, I should, I'm not enough kind of a thing, I'm not doing it good enough, then I'm able to separate out, okay, that is not my voice. That's actually someone I love very dearly, but that's not my voice. And so, and then I can connect with what is it that I love about what I'm doing in this situation, and connecting to that place of what do I care about, and do I need help? Who can I reach out to? So then that contemplation comes in of questioning, listening, what do I need to move forward? So thank you. And I think what I would love for everyone, hopefully after today, if you're not already doing that, is finding your own practices, right? Whether it's poetry, whether it's singing, whether it's making music or dancing, like creating some ritual that nurtures you. It's not someone told you should do, but it's something that if no one was looking, and you would still want to do that because it really nurtures your soul. So it's poetry, it's writing, it's journaling, it's cooking, whatever it is, right? So starting to make time, not for the things we just have to do because we're in school or we're in jobs or I'm a mother, we have all these roles and we have to do those things. But finding the things that nurture your soul, whether it's dancing under the sky, the stars, what is it? And making time for that. And that's when you send, I think, all the alignment. You're telling your mind this is important, because the mind is only prioritizing based on all those different stories telling you should be this, you should have done that. You have all these different thoughts and people and voices in your head telling you what's important, but realigning with what's important to you then allows you to reclaim that agency over your own life, and therefore also the lives of the people around you, whether it's your immediate family or your community, your workplace, and it has those ripple effects then. Thank you.
Shalini, thank you so much. It was a remarkable story and the way you dealt with each shift. But I think what I appreciate most is that you brought compassion and love into each moment of your life, each critical moment. And it comes at a very important time, given what we're all experiencing.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
as a token of our appreciation,
Oh.
we wanted to give you
Oh,
this plant.
that's beautiful. Oh, that is gorgeous.
And the mug
Beautiful.
and
Thank you.
a one-year membership to the club.
Yay.
So thank you so much. And if you want to mill around for a bit and talk to Shalini, there's still refreshments in the other room. And also you have your book, which people may want to take a look at.
Yeah, if you'd like to take a look, it's available at Amherst Bookstore. And a big shout out to Amherst Media that's here covering. Thank you. Thank you. And if you all don't know, Amherst Media covers all our local government meetings, which there are many of. And so we are so grateful. Thank you. Thank you.